Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night AstroLive experience. I'm Robert Phoenix. How is everybody? It always feels kind of abrupt to just jump in and say, hey, what's happening? What's going on out there? Kind of easing into it tonight on the Pisces tip. Are you coming over here? Come on, your people await you. They await you. I'm summoning Jasper, the astrological cat. Come on, this is your show. Come on, let's go. Don't you want to be part of it? Come on. There you go. Come on up here. There you go. Back by popular demand. Here he is right here. The mascot of the Sunday night show. But you know, he shows up on the weekday shows as well. But this is his night. This is where the astrological cat makes his bones. That's right. That's right, buddy. This is your hour or two or three, however long we're here. So get your look in at the rest of the people that are looking back at you. There you go. You want to jump into the crown, the giant gray crown? Or you want to be on my lap? Or you want to be on my lap? Well, you could be on my lap. People are still starting to show up here. They're still gathering. They want to know if Jasper is on. The word is probably out on Twitter now. That's a Jasper night. Yeah. Yeah. You've had a big weekend by yourself. Well, not really by yourself. Now that you have the upstairs cat. I definitely have a Pisces situation going on in my house with the cats. So Jasper is down here on the bottom floor. He rules the bottom floor. But then I have another cat upstairs who is a new cat. She's a stray. She wandered over here. And so I brought her in. I started feeding her. And she literally lives upstairs. Now, every now and then she'll descend from the heavens. Yes, that's right. She'll hang out with us. But maybe more frequently as the days go on. She just started to kind of come down and descend upon Jacob's ladder, where she can kind of be a part of our experience without being a part of our, because Jasper still hasn't really quite welcomed her into the fold, at least not affectionately. He's let go of a few snarly hisses. That's about it, right? You'll get there. But this is your night tonight. Anyway, so I have a Pisces thing going on, right? We have the Alpha and the Omega. We have the root and the fruit. And I have the upstairs cat and the downstairs cat. And they're like the fishes that are swimming in opposite directions, which is symbolic of Pisces. So we're doing our best to live up to our astrological coordinates here at the home studio domicile. All right, are you going to be back in your chair, or can I just do the show here? Because now you're in high maintenance mode. There's going to be a cat that's going to be high maintenance. I'd say it's Jasper. He's worth it. You're worth it, aren't you, buddy? Speaking of Pisces, I got a phone call from my mother tonight, who is out of the hospital. So she's in the clear, as they say, for now. Kind of a remarkable recovery, actually. I was there last Saturday night. Last Sunday night, I was also in the hospital, which is why I didn't do the show, because I just, well, you know, little schedule conflict there. And Saturday day, I was there. I thought, man, she's not going to make it out of here. I told this story on my show, my other show. She had the 1,000-yard stare. You guys know what I'm talking about with the 1,000-yard stare? They start talking to you, and it's like they're just like looking right through you. It's like, hello, I'm here, right? She had that 1,000-yard stare. I'm like, this is a sign. This is a sign that the program is winding down. And then I had this really, you know, again, so my mother happens to be a Pisces. Go figure. March 15th. I was looking at her chart tonight. Man, that's a tough chart. I'm not sure I'd want that chart. But of course, she's a Pisces, and I'm in a hospital, which is the realm of the 12th house in Pisces. It's like, okay, here we go. Here comes Saturn. Saturn in Pisces. We'll talk about that tonight. I'm thinking, yeah, I got to deal with my mother. Saturn's going into my 4th house. You can set your watch. You can set your clock by astrology. 100%. 100%. Here comes Saturn into my 4th house, and I'm dealing with my convalescing mother at Kaiser Hospital in Walnut Creek. So I went to her church on Sunday, and some of you know this story, but if you're just here new to the show or you haven't heard the story, I'll repeat it. So I went to, and I don't really go to church. In fact, I don't go to church, period, unless I'm with somebody and it's kind of a thing, right? It's like, well, can you go to church today with us, please? Be really important. I'm like, oh, okay. My first experience with the church, which I detailed on the comments on this show page a while ago, was, I'm going to drop an F-bomb. It was fucking traumatic. My first time I went to church. I was about maybe 3.5 or 4. It wasn't over 4, or not much over 4. And I go to church with my Piscean mother, by the way. And it's in New Jersey. And I'm with my grandfather and my grandmother. So we go to this church, the church they go to. It's an Episcopalian church. And they open the doors, and then what do I see? I see Jesus on a cross, big stained glass window in the background, lights pouring through it, the organ is swelling. I'm like, I am not walking in that place. There's no fucking way I'm going in that place. So I threw a tantrum. I wouldn't allow them to put me in there. So then instead I went to Sunday school. They had a little Sunday school. They could have just dropped me off in the Sunday school class. And I remember going in there and just kind of fucking around. I didn't take it very seriously. So that was my first experience with church. It was like overwhelming, just really overwhelming. Like, man, I have the South Node in Pisces, and I can only imagine and I could imagine, because I have, what that looks like. So I go to a church on Sunday, and sit by myself. And I talked to the minister, and I told him about my mother's condition. My mother is very active in her church. She does this thing called altar guild. And apparently she's in charge of the altar when there are these things happening at the church, the services, memorials, all those things, flowers. And you know, she's the queen bee of the altar guild. And so she's a big presence around the church. She does the Bible study thing, and she's part of the greeters community, the greeters group. And you walk up there and shake your hand and everything. So I just thought, yeah, I'll go to church for her. I'll go for her, because she can't make it, so I'll just do it today. And I've been talking to the minister. He texted me and wanted to know how she was doing. And I said, Jesse, I guess she's doing okay. I'll let you know more when I get there. And then I texted him and I said, hey, listen, when I'm there, I'd like to do like a little meet and greet with people after the service, so they can do a little video message on my phone for my mother, like, 5-10 seconds, something like that. He's like, sure, yeah, we'll figure it out. And then so he brings me up to talk about my mother's condition. I got really choked up. I mean, I rarely do I feel like I'm going to cry, but man, I felt like I was going to cry, because I had just been to the hospital the day before on Saturday, and I'm like, man, this is not going to go well. So I kind of spit out a few words, and I said, yeah, I think my mother is doing better. I think your prayers have helped, and she seems to be doing better. And, I think that's certainly true now. It wasn't necessarily true then, although they did move her from ICU to the heart ward. So there was a shift in her condition. So then I went outside and I did these little videos and I showed them to her and I went to the church. But when I was in the church, I was kind of overcome, by this feeling of, union and communion and unity and oneness and all these people that were pulling for my mother. And, it was all kind of encapsulated in this experience. And it wasn't like I was overwhelmed or anything, but I was certainly noticing it. And then the minister goes into the actual service sermon. And then one of the things that they brought up was this, like, I don't know, prayer group, support group. I don't know what they were, but it was for gender fluid people. And I'm like, what? What is this about? This is like a middle-class neighborhood in Contra Costa County, California. And I'm like, what is this? Okay. And then they had another, it was on one slide, and had another slide, which was kind of another religious support group, or, Christian, Episcopal, whatever support group for social justice warriors. And whatever kind of semi-sacred reverie I had, it just got shaken the shit out of me in that moment. It was like I was having this kind of very nice, it was a very nice kind of warm and fuzzy, oh, this is what church is about moment, to all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is what program is about moment. And then look, I think these people are good people. I don't think that they have ill intent. I don't think that they're setting up small van rides to tranny dance fever down at the local pub, right? We can't even call it tranny story hour. They've graduated from that. The whole tranny story hour, it's gone beyond the story hour now. Now they just take the kids to the bars. Do you see how fast that happened? It was like, well, let's bring the trannies into the library so they can read books to the little boys and girls. Oh, they're part of our community too. And then, oh, they're so harmless. That shit is so 2017, 2018, 2019. Now we're in a completely different world. Screw that. Take the kids to the bar and get them into the pole dance. This is how fast this thing is accelerated, which again, we're kind of in this really Piscean territory because of this, what I would call subjective morality. And when you get into subjective morality, you are definitely in Pisces. You can justify just about anything under the sign of the fish with subjective morality. Truth is has to be filtered and distilled from the source, right? So that was like smelling salts. So it was like here. So I saw Joe Rogan. He was doing hits of smelling salts on his show. That's like his new nootropic. Because I think he was doing was it Sober October? I don't know. Or he was intermittent fasting. So in order to stay alert and kind of energized, he'll break out smelling salts on his show. That's his new thing, right? So it was kind of like that. It was kind of like I had the smelling salts in the church. I was like, whoa, okay. That's weird. So my mother is out of the hospital now, which is kind of a big deal. And this brings us into the kind of the Piscean topic of prayer. And there were a lot of studies that have been done on the power of prayer. And there definitely seems to be a correlation between the power of prayer and people recovering or experiencing some benefit from it. There's a number of studies out there. One that I know of, which was the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which I visited a couple of times back in the early 2000s. And they had one going on there, kind of an ongoing one. So, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can attribute this to. That and maybe some of the designer adrenaline drugs that they were giving my mother to kind of get her heart going, which I think is probably part of the mix as well. But there were a lot of people that were pouring in a lot of faith for her to leave the hospital. So to all of you who did and did that and supported her, thanks a fucking lot. No, I'm just kidding. No, really, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. But my mother's a trip, man. She's a trip. And I understand how long, I understand why she's lived so long and how she's gotten so far in life for her, because she really grew up with nothing. I mean, she grew up in a really very crappy situation. The oldest of 5 kids, I've told her story before, high school education, really didn't get much love at all in her family. She was born in 1938. So, she didn't have a lot to work with when she started off, but she's tenacious. And I also think that somewhere down inside, my mother has always had something to prove, right? She's always had something to prove. And I think that it's been a bit of a chip on her shoulder. And I think that's probably helped her in some ways. Plus, I was looking at her chart, and man, she's got a lot of Aries in her chart. A lot of Aries. I think she has Mercury and Venus in Aries, and then I think she has Saturn in Aries too. Pretty sure she has Saturn in Aries. So yeah, she's just had a lot of Aries. So she's got that kind of Aries, ready for conflict sort of a vibe about her. And I think that's probably helped her in a lot of ways. But for everybody who did pray for her, and thank you for that. Truly, and I know it's helped, because when I saw her on Saturday night getting that 1,000-yard stare, I'm like, okay, well, better start loading up the old pickup truck here. That's kind of what it felt like. So we'll see where this goes from here. Saturn in my 4th house, I can only guess. And it would be a very informed guess, by the way. All right, let's see who's in chat tonight. Let's see who's in Chataria. I didn't know this, but there's a whole genre of steampunk music. I was not aware of that. Jess, were you aware of that? I was looking for some steam-oriented music. I wanted to play something with steam, some steam pipes or something. But I found this steampunk music. I'll show you guys later. All right, let's see who we have here. Who do we have? Who's in tonight? There's my man, DJ MC. We watched the Warriors and their epic comeback last week. And right below DJ MC, the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan S. Let's give her a rousing birthday celebratory huzzah. It is Dr. Joan S.'s birthday today. And we went out last time, a little celebration. It was good. Had some fine ass Mexican food. There's my man, TJ, Mr. Tom Jordan. Joni, I will find you a birthday song and play it before the night's over. Everybody gets a birthday song. Ms. Behavin', what's going on, Ms. Behavin'? Prosperity now. Prosperity now. Prosperity now. Hello back at you. Capria McLaughlin. Hello, Capria. You see rainbows and butterflies. Hi there, Melissa Urban. Woohoo, you're here. We're glad you're here. Mazamik, there she is. Noreen, hi, Noreen. Monica Farrow, hi, Monica. Right back at you, Dawn. Susie Gemini, the heart dealer, she's here. Helena Suba, hello, Helena. Let's see, I jumped out of another live. Hey, I feel good about that. Thanks for doing that. Let's see. Mazaming says I have Saturn in Pisces at 0 degrees. So in a couple of days, the Saturn transit will hit my placement. Another return. Laugh out loud. There you go. Saturn absolutely starts the clock, right? The timekeeper. Hi there, Jasper and Bob. Who's Bob? Jasper, you know who Bob is? Who's this Bob guy? Flat Earth hippie. What's going on, Flat Earth hippie? Jasper, the downstairs cat. Yeah, it's kind of a Dante thing, I think. Let's see. Who else do we have? Happy Sunday, PB. Good to see you. Diane Evans is here. There she is, the fantastic one. Hello, Fran. All right, we're going to get our Southwest Florida real estate update here in a second. Bill Smith, good evening, Bill. Let's see what Lewis has to say. We had let's see. We had 4,500 home go pending off the market in our MLS last month, and 4,100 sold. Slowed down a bit this week. Wow, look at that. I feel like you should have a ticker tape. So you had 4,100 sold last month in the Southwest Florida real estate region. So if you're looking to relocate in the Southwest Florida region, look no further than Lewis Walden. He's your man. All right, who else do we have? Carissa Demke. Hi, Carissa. Always good to see you. Let's see, who else? Love to see the birth chart of Ron DeSantis. Okay, he's a Virgo. Ron's a Virgo. He's very Virgoan too. Let's see. Thanks, Hanging. Lady Lou, California got hit with freak snow. There was snow on Mount Diablo when I was there, which looked beautiful with the snow on it. Peter Bayonne. Hi, Peter. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Noreen. Let's see who else. Grateful Dogs. Hi, Grateful Dogs. Claire, yes, my Venus got absolutely battered with the energies. It's very real. Okay, your Venus, hoping your Venus perks right back up with a little sunshine and some fresh water. It's going to be interesting. Saturn going into my 6th and Pluto in my 5th. Oh, wow. Saturn is 6. I hope you like what you do. I hope you like what you do. If you like what you do with Saturn in the 6th, you'll get, I'll tell you the key to Saturn in the 6th. You ready? It's Saturn in the 5th. If you've spent 3 years working on something that you love, by the time Saturn gets to the 6th house, you're in. You're in. You're doing something that you love. You've had 3 years to perfect a love in your craft. So when it hits the 6th house, you're good. If you haven't done it, well, let's just say it's a little bit of a different ride. Okay. California looking for another 3 to 5 feet. Apparently, Tessa Dick is snowed in. She lives down in the mountains around San Diego. Apparently, she's snowed in. I saw that. I think she had an update on her YouTube channel. Hope you stay warm up there, Tessa. Sometimes church is fine, other times not always. T. Jordan says depends on the church. I'm not a church guy. Let's see. Who else do we have? But hey, Chelsea Tantra, what's going on, Chelsea? Good to see you. Chelsea's got a great little YouTube channel where she's doing dailies. Check it out. Good stuff. All right, who else do we have? Experimental Elemental. There's Chad Warren. What's going on, Chad? Good to see you here. Hope you're winning the culture wars. Gaia Travelog. Showing up. Neo. Hello, Neo. Love of Scorpio is here. Robert, I believe in the power of prayer. Yes. It seems to have worked. I'm telling you right now. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Steve Letro. What's going on, Steve? Good to see you. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me. Pardon me. Let's see. Sony, what's happening, Sony? Darlene, checking in from the SA. What's going on, darling? Let's see who else do we have. The 210, darling, in the 210. Let's see, Red Pill, 78GF. What's going on? Good to see you in here. Double B, Beth Berry, she's here. Got a lot of greetings here. The Woke Church did wake me up, for sure. I was like, really? Kelly B, what's happening, Miss Scorpio? Good to see you. Claire prays every day. Good. Let's see, who else do we have? Did I miss somebody? Did I miss anyone? Let's see. Age is a gift. Yes, it's a gift that keeps on giving, doesn't it? Mary DeCina. Hello, Mary. Good to see you. Diane Evans is here. Yam Bond, I just quoted you. None of the stuff Rob mentioned is antisocial behavior anymore. Now it's taking a dose of ivermectin. I know. Let's see, who else do we have? Maui Logic, what's going on? Now here, being here to enjoy yourself, stretch out, bring a little of the island vibe our way. Whimsical Farm Girl is here. What's going on, Whims? Whimsy, PMSO. There's Janine, Terry Catterley. Hi, Terry. Nice to see you. Stellar Yoga Arts. What else do we have? What else here? Thor to Door. There's my man, Steve. And I think we're up to speed now. I think we got everybody covered. Pretty sure we got everybody covered. Steve Borg Resistance. Let's see. Anybody else? I think we're good. We're good to go. Yep. All right. Hey, so if you feel so obliged, hit the like button. Hit the like button and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot going on here. We had a great interview with the Crimmies. You know, whenever I get together with the Crimmies, it's not so much of an interview as it is a talk. Like, we hang out, we talk. We've known each other now going back to, I think, 2017. So at least 5 or 6 years with the Crimmies, and doing shows once a month. And then, you know, of course, meeting Chris and Steve in person as well. So I've had the great fortune to meet them. So when we get together and talk, I mean, we're really talking from a place of friendship. So it's really easy to have those conversations. But this last Friday was a really good one. And I'm going to cover some of it on tonight's show, since we wade into Piscean territory. And we're going to cover some of that tonight. And some of the odd anomalies around Pisces and the sign, and some of the personalities that are Piscean, a very wide estuary of Piscean personae, so to speak. But before I do that, I do have a sponsor for the show, and that sponsor, of course, happens to be True Hemp Science. And True Hemp Science really got me through my time in California when I really needed to sleep. And I did double up on the gummies a little bit, only because, well, I needed to. I gave myself permission to double up on the gummies. But there are a number of other really fine products over at the THS website, which I'm going to take you into right now. And there it is. There's the THS website. We got oils, edibles, water soluble, stuff for your pets, pet sounds, really great products. I wonder where he is on the edibles. Let's just go in here. So we have the sleep gummies. They're all there. Non-detect THC 25, CBD 50. I prefer the black cherry myself. Some people like the cherry and the watermelon. I like the orange and the black cherry. The orange is almost spicy. So you can get these little boxes here. I'm telling you. So some people can actually eat them, cut them in half. Right there, that's a month. That is a month's supply. And if you go in this direction, you could probably cut these in half, and you're almost at 2 months for your sleep products and sleep gummies. But there's a lot more than just the sleep gummies. There's a lot of different types of CBD that you can take for inflammation, all kinds of other things. So triumscience.com, that's your go-to source for all hemp products, which I do recommend. And if you spend $100 or more, you're going to get a free product. So that's always a cool thing. And Chris is pretty generous about that. Spend $150 or more, and you're going to get free shipping. All you got to do is type in 15, that's 15 MINS, 15 MINS. When you check out, when you do check out, he'll know that you came. He'll know that you came from here. He'll throw you some goodies and make sure that you're taken care of. All right. So let's get into some Pisces stuff tonight. I'm going to bring up the sign, the symbol of Pisces. And there's a couple symbols, but this is the one that I think a lot of people are familiar with. And it's two fish, and they're swimming in opposite directions, which is really very Piscean, isn't it? You know, one fish is swimming towards the light, and the other fish is swimming away from it. And this is the dualistic and at times even self-destructive nature of Pisces. You know, when we get into Pisces, we get into the broad spectrum of personality and type and consciousness, because we'll go through some Piscean characters tonight, and I'll show you just how different they are. You know, you'll find one Piscean character who is an absolute and complete reprobate, and then you'll find another Piscean character who exhibits all the sterling qualities that a human could be, should be, and would be known for. And right off the top of my head, and I know the victors write the story, but George Washington is a Pisces. And I know that George Washington wasn't perfect, but he's the father of the country, right? It doesn't get much more iconic than George fucking Washington. He's at the top. He's at the top of the Piscean pyramid. Mr. Cannabis smoking, Freemasonic, Master Mason, father of the country. He's right at the top of the Piscean pyramid. And of course, he has these exemplary qualities, which theoretically he has portrayed. So it doesn't get much more, I think, heroic or mythological than George Washington. Right? He's got his own monument. You know, he's got this giant monument that is attributed to him and his prowess and his character and his being, right? And then it goes in a lot of different directions. But this is the nature of Pisces. And sometimes you could have somebody who's a Pisces exhibit, you know, multiple character traits. In some instances, they can be, again, you know, complete reprobates and asocial. And in other moments, they can display, you know, true soul and true essence and true character. And so it's not always mutually exclusive with Pisces, which is kind of confounding. You know, so if you have a Pisces child or you've had a Pisces child, you've probably been aware of this. You've seen this variance of their, you know, their potential in a lot of ways. And sometimes it'll drive you nuts. Well, why can't you just be more like that most of the time? Well, they can't, because Pisces is a mutable sign and it's fluid. It's water, right? So it's always changing. And there are different purity levels of water. There are different levels of water just by the level itself. Sometimes you're dealing with high tides. Sometimes you're dealing, with very, very low tides, or you're dealing with drought conditions. I mean, so you can't expect a Pisces person to show up and be consistent all the time, even though there are plenty of consistent Pisces people. Don't get me wrong. But it's hard for them to do that. It's just the nature of the sign. All the mutable signs have a tendency to flash, and sometimes they'll be spectacular, and sometimes they'll be like, where did they go? I'm like, MIA, missing in action. And I think that's one of the more frustrating components to the mutable nature of the sign itself. It's fairly unpredictable, and you can't always channel it or harness it. And Pisces case, I think channel is probably the best description to begin to understand the sign. It's a sign that I do think is very much connected with channeling. I think wasn't Edgar Cayce a Pisces, if I'm not mistaken, and he's really the epitome of that in a lot of ways. The sleeping prophet. He didn't. It was funny too, because Cayce probably could have used a lot of his knowledge to enrich himself. He actually used knowledge to enrich other people. People made money off of Cayce when it came to things like the stock market. I mean, whatever came through him, it did not always focus on sort of the threadbare wisdom of a mendicant monk, right? There were like some really interesting life tips for people that would come through Cayce, but he himself didn't partake of that, which I thought was quite interesting as well. The other thing that I loved about Cayce, which speaks to his Piscean, let me just make sure. I'm going to make sure he's a Pisces. I'm pretty sure he's a Pisces, but I don't want to do a whole fucking show and then get it wrong, because then it doesn't look good on me. Yeah, March 18th. See, I got it right. Yeah. So the one thing because I really got into Cayce when I was younger. Like, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be Edgar Cayce. I think I was maybe 20, 21. Like, this sounds like a cool life. Little did I know how uncool it's not, because of the absolute drain that it put on the man. But one of the things that Cayce said that always stuck with me was that he felt that it was good to be able to go down to the pub or the bar every now and then and have a couple of glasses of beer or a couple of glasses of wine with the fellows. And I thought, what, this guy's got a healthy take on that part of his experience. So I took him to heart on that many times. But that's Pisces at its best, right? Pisces at its best is the individual has this very thin membrane between themselves and the world around them. Whether it's the etheric world or the physical world, it's very, very fluid. So a lot of times they can be very inspired as people, and when it comes to art or when it comes to creativity, can be very, very inspired because they have that fluidity, right? They're sort of dancing between these realms. But I also think that that's what makes life really hard for Pisces, especially if they touch into beauty or something mystical or something divine, and then it's not there. I think that's the hard part. The mutability of like having this taste of Eden and then it not being there anymore. I think that can be very, very challenging for the Piscean individual. And as a parent of a Piscean child, I saw a lot of this at play in his development. And part of what I had to do at a certain point was like, take my Virgo self out of the mix. I mean, literally, I almost had to take myself out of the mix, because during this very formative phase, I was, playing the role of Saturn in his life, and you can't really do that with a Pisces. Pisces don't really respond well to Saturn unless it's a Saturn transit that I have to go through. If you look at the history of Saturn, Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius, Pisces spent time on Jupiter. Pisces spend time on Venus. Those are two very different planets. Like Jupiter is expansive and it's kind of fun and jocular, and there's a lot of goodwill associated with Jupiter. And Venus is about, again, beauty and art and love. And so these are the celestial roots of Pisces. Pisces responds much better to those two luminaries, and of course Neptune, its current affiliation, than Saturn. That doesn't work well with Saturn, right? Saturn wants to build the Hoover Dam. That's what Saturn does. In fact, when Saturn was in Pisces, FDR inaugurated the Hoover Dam. Like he said, okay, boom, Hoover Dam, right? So Pisces doesn't always do well with that. So you have to kind of let Pisces sort of flow. You have to let them flow and let them find their own level. So if you're a Pisces parent, you probably know what I'm talking about. The danger is when Pisces kind of moves into a place where it's not controllable. You know, like you could have the occasional fuck up or whatever with your kid, and you can kind of see, okay, this is some stupid Pisces shit, right? But if it goes into a deeper territory, and we're talking about things like addiction, then it could get very, very difficult for the Pisces individual. Very difficult, because a lot of times they feel like, you know, they can get trapped in the undertow of fill in the blank, whatever the addiction is, and they just can't get out of it, no matter what they do. Scorpio has addiction issues too, but it's different for Scorpio, because Scorpio knows at some point they're going to hit the fucking bottom. They just know it, right? And they'll hit the bottom, and then they'll shatter, and then they'll pick themselves back up again, and they'll kind of reboot, and they'll come back stronger. That's the nature of Scorpio. With Pisces, they don't know where the bottom is. They think they hit the bottom, and there's another level of the bottom. It's like, oh shit, I thought I'd taken care of this, and there's another level of the bottom. So, you know, the hands-off approach, it can be good, but then there's a point where sometimes, you know, what do you do? Because sometimes the hands-off approach doesn't work, and the person that you love, you realize that they've gone a lot further and deeper than you thought they would, and even what they thought they would. And then when you get into that territory, then you have all the worst parts of Pisces come up, you know, the lying, the justification. And then, of course, there's that everybody's out to get me, which is very Piscean. It's the sign of the scapegoat. Everybody's out to get me. It's always my fault. You Pisces rising people, you got to watch out for that. That's the rising sign where it's like you're beautiful and you're popular until you're not. And at that point, they will come after you, right? Because Pisces on the ascendant is like a mirror. It's a mirror. You're just showing the rest of the world something that they either love to see. Oh my God, I can see myself in this beautiful person. They're beautiful. I'm beautiful. Well, we're beautiful. Or if they're having a bad day or a bad life or whatever, they see something that they want to see, and instead of the mirror reflecting back at them and then personifying the other person's beauty or the other person's grace or the other person's sort of a glamour, they'll attack the other person. So, you know, this is the nature of Pisces. Pisces is the scapegoat. When we think of the Piscean age, we think of Jesus. And of course, Jesus is the biggest psychological archetypal symbol of the 20th century. I don't know if Jesus will be the symbol of the 21st century. That's going to be a really interesting topic of discussion. But if you get into literature, you'll always come up against this kind of, you know, Christ-like figure, or it's embedded in the psyche of the West in the 20th century. It's a really interesting symbol, and it's connected to the age of Pisces, which we are now moving out of. So I wonder what the symbol for the 21st century will be. I'm not even sure if it will be an individual. Maybe it'll be a robot that's crucified. Maybe it's maybe it's the robot, the humanoid from the replicant from Blade Runner. Maybe that's what we'll. And I think there's some. What's interesting about the second Blade Runner is that some of that mythology begins to seep in. In the second Blade Runner, the one that was done about 3 years ago by Denis Villeneuve, there's some interesting symbols in there. I think that's what they're trying to recreate. There's this whole idea of the new virgin birth, right? So are they really creating a new symbol, or is it just a spin and a reboot on a symbol from a previous age? You be the judge. But it's Pisces to me is an absolutely fascinating sign. Sometimes they drive me crazy. I think they drive a lot of people crazy sometimes, because that's the nature. It's the nature of Pisces. You can't capture the fish, right? It's just that's the unique part of Pisces. You have to let them sort of do their own thing in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's the most sensitive sign by far. And I know Cancer is pretty sensitive, but Cancer has also got that kind of crabby shell, got the crabby shell. Pisces is way more sensitive, and you can hurt a Pisces, and it doesn't take much to hurt a Pisces. And sometimes you think you're just joking, and you're not. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh wow, man, that person really, really took that personally. So as a sign, the level of sensitivity is incredibly high, really, really high. So we're gonna look at some Piscean people tonight. We're gonna go back in time and look at some other periods where Saturn was in Pisces and some interesting things happening during those times, because we're looking ahead. We have Saturn coming into Pisces on March 8th. Which is my Piscean son's birthday. So why don't we, what does Edgar Cayce's chart look like? It's on his page. Let's see. All right, so Edgar Cayce, C rating by Lois Roden. Uranus on the ascendant, Leo. That's cool. He's unconventional. I like that. There's that Piscean sun in the 8th house. That's the channel right there, huh? Oh, look at all this Pisces. He's got Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Pisces. Wow. Node, that's the mean node. We'll just call that the true node. Close enough. Venus, Saturn, right? It's all there. Boy, talk about fluid. Look at that. Look at that. And then here with the sun, the sextile to the moon. So he really trusts his intuition and his emotions. Where's Jupiter and Neptune? So Neptune trining Jupiter and Mars, and then the conjunction with the moon. Oh, that's fluid too, isn't it? So his moon is at 12 and Neptune's at 3. It's a 9-degree orb. Up in the 9th house, he's had a lot of people from other countries come visit him. There's a famous story with Cayce where this woman from Italy comes to see him, and he goes into a trance, and he starts speaking to her in Italian. It's kind of weird though, because she actually understood some English. So I don't know if his guides or whatever were trying to make it easier for her, but if they knew that he spoke English or she spoke English, why didn't you just go English? I don't know the answer to that, but it's kind of cool. It's a cool Edgar Cayce story, where he is able to speak a language he doesn't even know. And the sleeping prophet, why do they call him the sleeping prophet? Because he used to claim that he could lay a book under his pillow and he could read the contents of the book. You know, with this chart, I don't think that that's entirely impossible. What's interesting about his chart is he has absolutely no air. So he's really immersed in this realm of the subconscious, the unconscious, the collective experience of spirit. And he's got the one-on-one going on over here in the seventh house. So he's a practitioner for people. He's a healer. This is what Edgar Cayce is. He's a healer. And then the square to the sun with Jupiter, he worked very hard. That's another thing about Cayce. He was a tireless worker. And there are some people who believe he flamed out, right? He just burned out. And I could see that with a Sun Jupiter square. Like he didn't have this bottomless well to tap into. And I think he died fairly young, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he lived a terribly long life. But there you go. So there's that channel, that deep channel of the sun in the eighth house. And even the thing with helping people out with their money, which he would do on a number of occasions. Clearly, that's an eighth house sun, affectation, and in the sextile to Pluto. Some really interesting chart. Very, very interesting. I wonder if somebody just came to me with this chart, what I would do with it. Like, wow. Well, first of all, Uranus with Pluto would have to be in Virgo. So Pluto would be in a different spot. It'd have to be over here. It'd be the big change there. Neptune would have to be somewhere else. Probably in Scorpio, so it'd be somewhere down here. It changed the chart a lot, actually. I don't know. I'd probably tell this person to be a psychic or a mystic or an intuitive and work with people in that regard. That's what I would say. This is exactly what I would say. If he worked hard. Get Mars in Capricorn. If people have Mars in Capricorn, don't take days off. Anyway, there's a little Edgar Cayce for you. All right, so why don't we do this? Let's go into the chart of the moment. And let's look at where we're at now. In fact, I'm just going to create a new chart for us because I can do that. What time is it right now? 7:09. Let's do this. All right, come on. Come on. It's a really nice night here. I might have to go outside after the show's over. Hang out with the porch cat. So I have the upstairs cat, the downstairs cat, and the outside cat. I got my cats covered. All right. Lord of the Cats. So there we go. There's our sun at 15. Pisces, we're in the second decan. So we're bringing it home. We're bringing it home. Does it grow corn? That's going to be the question of the evening. Mercury, still behind the sun, creeping. Getting a little closer every day. And Mars slowly, I think it's picking up a little bit of speed now in Gemini. We've got 9 more degrees until it goes into Cancer. And man, have we had Mars in Gemini for a very long time. It goes all the way back to what? September? It went retrograde on October 31st. Retrograde October 31st and didn't go direct until January 13th. So the sun is catching up here. And I think this is one of those weeks where I think pay attention to your energy. Don't spill your energy out, right? This is, oh, please, can you just do one more favor for me? Can you just do one more favor? Watch out for the one more favor this week, because that sun is creeping up on Neptune. By next week, by next Sunday, that sun will be at 22 degrees. It'll be conjuncting Neptune. And it'll be in a very, very tight square with Mars. And so be careful of your motivations. really be discerning about your motivations. Are you really, really helping to be altruistic and selfless, or are there deeper things that are compelling you to get involved in somebody's life? Be very aware of these energies over the next, I would say, 10 days, 11 days, 12 days. We got to get the separation from the sun to Mars. Let's call it 2 weeks, because Mars is moving, the sun is moving, right? So 2 weeks, just make sure that your motivations are key. When the sun moves into Aries, it'll be a little bit better, right? But we're a ways out from that, We're like 17 days away, so 2 weeks, because we'll have the sun on the other side of Neptune. I guarantee you it'll still be squaring Mars at that time. So these next 2 weeks, you want to conserve your energy. Don't let it bleed out all over the place. Also, when we deal with the world, let's talk about the world. If we just dealt with each other, we'd be fine. But it's the world that has become a real issue. Am I right? Now, I know that there are people that we have issues with, don't get me wrong. But I would say, by and large, if you have cultivated the right peer group over the last year and a half to 2 years, either through conscious awareness and application or due to the fact that there's been this pruning going on, you're probably not going to have that many problems with the people in your life. It's just the way these things have been sorted out. But what you will have problems with is the world. And when we get into this Sun square Mars, especially in Pisces and with Neptune, it's really easy to get caught up in the tide of what's going on with the world. For instance, I just read that there was another derailment around East Palestine. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Right? So there's another thing happening there. And then they took a lot of the water that had been contaminated, brought it to Houston. Houston, apparently something. So we're going through these things now. This is a really challenging time, because what the question is, what are you going to do about them? Right? That's where we get into this helplessness with the Sun Mars square, and then Sun Neptune conjunction, and even the Mars Neptune square. Like, what are you going to do? There are things you can do, but there's probably a lot less that you can't do in order to try to plug the dam, to use a Piscean metaphor, and stop the bleeding, because it seems like we are now in the thick of something, really in the thick of something. When you look around and you look at all these accidents, you look at everything, it seems like there is a concerted effort to derail our relationship with things like produce and food in general, with fuel, right? I mean, it feels like we're under attack. And when you start to see these things, and you start to, again, I can't tell you how many people I've spoke to over the last 2 weeks, and the one topic that we've all had in common is the amount of crap in the sky that we've been witnessing for going on 30 years now. And it just seems like for the last couple of weeks, it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I can't think of anything more symbolic of absolute frustration and futility than having to witness that garbage day in and day out. Right? If you allowed yourself to just be impacted by what's going on up there, you would become absolutely utterly demoralized, because there's not a fucking thing you can do. Well, I'm sure you could call the FAA, which I've done in the past a long time ago. You could call your elected official. Like, what are they going to do? I mean, seriously. I actually had a conversation with Dennis Kucinich one time. I've told this story. I was backstage at this big festival. He was there, and he was running for president. He was on the trail, and he was giving a speech, and it was just him and this guy. I don't know who the guy was. It was like press secretary or whatever. And I said to him, I said, hey, Dennis, I have a question for you. If you're president, what are you going to do about this geoengineering, this crap in the sky? And he actually admitted it. He admitted to me that it was a problem. Like, I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with many politicians, but the one that I did have an opportunity to sit down and talk with, he admitted it was a problem. And he had an air safety bill that he was trying to put together. And part of the reason he was doing this was so that planes could report what was in their fuel. Like, he was trying to get to the particulate matter of the matter. And that never went that far. He got stalled in the House. And then, of course, he stepped away from political life after he ran the second time and lost. But he's the only guy that I've ever seen. But this is, I've ever talked to, who actually admitted this, right? So it's one of those things, right? We see these things going on. We see it in the skies. We hear about it. We hear about it in the water, the news. The next 2 weeks are a real test for everybody to retain their sensitivity, their humanity, right? Like, we are at the golden buffet of the archons right now. That's where we are. With this alignment, and even Mercury's starting to come into the mix now. You know, Mercury's in a wide square here, but coming into the mix. Wait till Mercury picks up some steam. Wait till Mercury gets to about 13, 14 degrees. You know, we'll be there next week. Mercury will be at 11, closer, right? It'll definitely be much closer to the sun. And talk about temper. And with Mercury and Pisces, everything is so subjective, and the sensitivity and feeling like somebody is coming after you, or you feel like you're being targeted. This is a really intense 2 week stretch here, and I would urge all of you to not swipe at the low hanging fruit. Like, I feel like the next 2 weeks is a real period of being tested. It's a real test phase, test cycle. And you're thinking, well, how much more am I going to be fucking tested on? When does the testing stop? I get it. I totally get it. It feels to me like this week, these next 10 days of 2 weeks is kind of like a master's class. Now, just remember, 15 days from now, the sun begins its ingress into Aries, and everything begins to change. Everything begins to change. I mean, just, at that time, Venus will be in Taurus, but we're still going to have Jupiter here. We're still going to have Vesta and Chiron. Juno will be in Taurus too, which is really nice. I like Juno and Taurus. But it's like the cavalry is on its way. Mercury will show up in Aries. So we're gonna have a shit ton of planets in Aries, as the kids say. And that's going to be a much more active, hands-on, catalytic, cardinal acceleration phase. As we cycle out of the astrological new year, when we get into third decan Pisces, where are we? Well, we're in Scorpio. And that makes total sense, doesn't it? It's like the death of the astrological new year is contained within the third decan of Pisces. So that's even something to pay attention to. Like, the next 2 weeks are a real test. They're a total test because, we're 5 days away from the sun being in the scorpionic decan, and that's when things really feel like they're ending. They feel like they're dying, right? And there's kind of this sense of desperation in the air, like how much more can I take? How much more can I handle? How much more can I just put on my back? And I'm just telling you, just hang in there, because there's a major shift when the sun moves into Aries this year. Major, major, major shift. And one of the reasons why is because of Saturn, and Saturn moving into Pisces. Like that Saturn in Pisces it'll be like the bottom end. It'll be like the base, right? It'll be the base. And on top of it, we'll have all this Aries energy. And if you have the right moral position with Saturn and Pisces, well, that's like the Crusades, isn't it? Those guys thought they had the right moral position, and they sure had a hell of a lot of Aries. So we're kind of moving into that period here. We're moving into a period in 2 weeks where it is supercharged with Crusader energy, for better or worse. A lot of people say, well, the Crusades were brutal and this and that. Well, I guess you had to be there. But yeah, the thing about astrology is that it's also dualistic. So not one group has the copyright or the trademark on a crusade. Let's put it that way. You could have multiple groups and marching to the beat of their own drums for their own crusade. But I will say that based on this energy, which is very Aries, very individualistic, and very male, that it's going to look a certain way, right? It's going to look like people are mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Some interesting things are happening with this Republican Congress, and I don't really hold out any hope for them, but they're doing things that are different, right? They've got a guy there now, and who knows, maybe they've got the goods on Kevin McCarthy. I don't know. I don't have any real insight into that, but something has changed, right? There's a bit of a sea change here. And I'm going to use Pisces as a metaphor. A sea change, get it? So we talked about this on Friday. Gone. Jacinda Ardern, she's gone. The horse face from New Zealand, she's gone. Nancy Pelosi, she's gone. Nancy Pelosi is gone. Now, I think she's still in the Congress, if I'm not mistaken, but she's gone from her leadership position. Nicola Sturgeon from Scotland, she's gone. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, is gone. And there's a good chance that the next mayor of Chicago will be an ex-police officer, which fits right in alignment with the Aries energy that's coming. So do you see what's going on here? Dianne Feinstein is in the hospital. She's probably in a coma. She's probably not going to make it back and take up space and oxygen, right? So there's a change here. There's a sea change that's happening. And even somebody like Fetterman, who is not a woman, all those other people I mentioned are women, even somebody like Fetterman is probably gone. His wife fled to Canada, right? Took the kids what does she know? Why did she flee to Canada? So she can't be interviewed? I mean, that's a Piscean location. So even Fetterman, he's kind of immersed in the Piscean realm of the 12th house. So just look at all those characters that I just mentioned. And now you have this Aries energy coming, and it's going to be very interesting. So the next couple of weeks are a real test, a testing of your patience, testing of your strength, your resources, your money, right? And there may be a person or two that you're going to have to say no to. And that may be a really, really difficult lesson. You may have to say, no, I can't do this. It's draining me, right? If you think of everything that's, again, I'll bring it back to the world too. And there's only so much you can do for the world now. Okay, I'm just being clear, or as clear as I can be. When the sun goes into Aries, there's going to be more of a call. Number one, it's the spring here in the northern hemisphere, and number two, we've got the sun and Jupiter, and we've got Chiron. They'll all be there. They'll all be there in Aries. I think maybe even Venus might be there at the end of Venus. So it's just very different energy. Really, really different. Mercury will definitely be there. So hang in there. Hang in there. When I think of that phrase, hang in, I think of the hangman in Tarot, which to me is very Piscean. Right? There's like nothing you can do when you hit the hangman. There's just nothing you can do. And has anybody ever had those hangman moments in your life where you know that you have no momentum, you really can't do anything, and it's almost as if you're being kind of hung out to dry a little bit, right? So when I'm in those moments when I've had them, I just try to do, and I'd get really frustrated, and I would pull a card like there's the hangman. So I would be more inclined to help other people during those times. Like if I can't do shit right now, let me see if I can help somebody else. And that's how you get off of. That's how you get off the cross. That's exactly how you do it. You just basically say, I'm here. But during this period of time, you may want to pay attention to that too, because I think there's a price to pay for overextending yourself. Just do not overextend yourself. The other thing here as well is that, and I think we all probably have the ability to do this, is to look at yourself from the other person's position and maybe even look at where you're vulnerable or where you feel like you're a victim. The next 2 weeks is it's the cult of the victim. This is what we're looking at, the cult of the victim. And we all have a role to play in that. We all do. So it feels to me like this is just kind of seasoning everybody for Saturn and Pisces, which is coming. We got the moon at 28 Leo. So tomorrow that moon is moving into Virgo. We're hitting the full moon here. So a very interesting full moon. You've got the critical full moon in Virgo and the uber accepting unconditionality of the Piscean sun. Just wait until we get out to Tuesday and that moon starts to square Mars. Man, Tuesday is going to be prickly day. Not a lot of patience on Tuesday. Not a lot of patience on Tuesday. Because on the one hand, like Mars square sun is, mañana, we'll do it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it. And the moon square Mars is, you should have got to it like last week. Right. So there's this urgency with the moon Mars square. If you're traveling, keep your head about you. I can see delays, cancellations, all kinds of weird shit happening with travel. Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, absolutely. Strange, weird shit. We have an inconjunct with the moon, that Pluto at 29:37 Aquarius down here, and then the moon at 28:45 Virgo. That's an interesting inconjunct. Now it's only here for tonight. By the time we wake up tomorrow, let's see, the moon will probably maybe around 4 Virgo. So it's moved out of that inconjunct. It's like a danger moon, right? That's 28 Leo. My bad. It's 28 Leo. 28 Leo. Interesting. That's an interesting inconjunct. Yeah. That's like a unfulfilled or unconsummated passion. And then we have the moon coming in here, and that's in an opposition with Saturn. We got this moon Saturn opposition. Yeah. I felt that in my phone call with my mother about 2 hours ago. I got that moon Saturn opposition. I got a heavy dose of that. apparently she left her purse and her iPad at the hospital. Crisis, right? Crisis. We'll see what happens. What else we have here? I do like Mercury coming into that sextile with Uranus. That's very, very fast and fluid. You know, so the processing over the course of the next 10 days can be really, really good. Really, really good. So your intuition can be super high, you know, super high level processing. Like, try not to just get caught up in other people's shit and traps, including the world's, right? You know, try to kind of, you know, rise above it a little bit here, because the Mercury's going to catch up to the sun. It's going to eventually move ahead of the sun, so it'll rise above, right? So try to rise above here and find some interesting solutions for your life in general, and trust your intuition. And intuition isn't always the same as emotion. They're not always connected. You can have an intuition about something that might have a very different pull on you than your emotions do. So definitely trust the intuition piece. And then we're really at the final degrees of this Saturn. Well, I guess, Saturn's going to be at 0 Pisces on the 8th. So we're kind of at the end here with this Mars-Saturn trine, which is really good it has been good for maintaining some order in your life. And even with the sun here at 15 Pisces, so 2, 3, 4 days ago, we can take this back to like even 11 Pisces, you know, kind of crisis mode. But Saturn here has been pretty steady in keeping some order in your life. Venus moves into a tighter sextile with Mars and moving closer into a conjunction with Juno over the next few days. And that's pretty sexy. That's hot. Venus in Aries is hot. So you get this sizzle with Venus and Mars, and Venus conjuncting Juno. You want to make a baby? There you go. There's your baby making energy right there. Venus Juno conjunction. So all you biological men and women out there, you want to make a baby? This is your baby time right here. Right here, next couple of weeks. If you don't want to make a baby, you better pay attention to that. Just saying. All right. There we go. Little Piscean riff for the energies ahead. All right. So I was going through a lot of these Piscean characters. Let's take a look at them. Let's call them up, shall we? Where are we? Yeah, that guy's interesting. Okay, let's go to the top of the list. I'll just do a little running commentary here on some of these people. Now, I don't know who ranks these people. I think the ranking is quite odd, actually. But number one, of course, top of the pyramid is George Washington. Then we have Charles V and Bonnie. I'm sorry, I got to put George Harrison in My Sweet Lord ahead of Aunt Bonnie. I'm just saying. So I was thinking about the Beatles and how they have their own songs that typify their signs, even if they're not in the Beatles, right? So with George Harrison, Mr. Pisces, you get My Sweet Lord. With John Lennon, who's a Libra, what do you get? Instant karma, the balancing of the scales. And we'll just go with Paul McCartney as Paul McCartney. And he's a Gemini. And what is the most Gemini of Paul McCartney songs? Ebony and Ivory, right? Duality, a little Stevie Wonder. And then Ringo's the hard one because he's a Taurus. And the only thing I could come up with Ringo was Maxwell's Silver Hammer, because it's a hammer, it's silver, and it's very Taurus. Now, Jean Bedel Bokassa, I don't know who this guy is, but he's ranked over Einstein. I'm not sure why. Kevin Smith, who I guess was in Hercules, he's ranked over Einstein as well. I don't know who does these rankings. The lovely Elizabeth Taylor, and now we have Einstein. Bruce Willis, Osama bin Laden, everybody's favorite. He is totally a scapegoat guy, isn't he? He's a total scapegoat guy. He's a total scapegoat guy. Oh, let's pin the World Trade Center bombings on Osama bin Laden. Oh, right. Yeah, perfect. Perfect character. Pisces. Bruce Willis, if he was there, he would have saved everybody. Jerry Lewis, Pisces. That dude's bizarre. Bobby Riggs, a tennis player, Pisces. Took a fall for Billie Jean King. Who else? Sidney Poitier. All right, now here we go. See what I'm talking about? You get now James Earl Ray. A lot of people think he's a patsy, a fall guy, another scapegoat. We have Eichmann rocking the bill. Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things is a Pisces. Now this guy is interesting. I'm going to do a little pit stop here. Vyacheslav Molotov. This is the guy that they named the Molotov Cocktail after. And what do we think of Pisces? We think of Pisces as libations and drinks. He's a very interesting character. He was Stalin's number 2. And he worked as a Soviet foreign minister from 39 to 49. That's 10 years. And then from 53 to 56, that's 3 years. And while people were getting poked by ice picks or poisoned or taken out to the firing squad, this guy floated through everything. I mean, everything. And he had a flaming cocktail named after him. What's really interesting about him is the fact that he had this really frumpy front, but he was playing art of war with people, total art of war guy, and it helped him kind of sail through under the radar. And what's interesting is that Stalin, who's a Sagittarius, so their signs are they're in square with each other, but Stalin never saw him as a threat. And Stalin was very keenly aware of threats. So Molotov never appeared to be anything more than he was, which was a dedicated man to the party, right? And he was able to sail through all these very intense and radical changes that took place in the Soviet Union from the time he was there with the Bolshevik Revolution to when Khrushchev takes over and basically denounces Stalin, and he's one of Stalin's buddies. So he's kind of on the outs again there. But I just thought it was interesting. The father of the Molotov cocktail is a Pisces. All right, who else do we have? Rihanna's a Pisces. Did you know that? Did you know Rihanna has sold more records than Pink Floyd? I find that hard to believe. Another famous Russian, Mikey Gorbachev. Rachel Weitz. Looks like we have some high-level Nazis here. Eddie Murray used to play ball for the Orioles. Let's see, Johnny Cash. He feels like a Pisces, doesn't he? Dresses in black all the time. Even though it's a Scorpio thing. It could be a Pisces thing too. Right next to him, Desi Arnaz, the speed freak. Alexander Graham Bell's a Pisces. Constantine the Great's a Pisces. Also, what's interesting here is you have Michael Dell and Steve Jobs, two of the major computer heads in this country and this culture. They're both Pisces. Elliot Page, who shape-shifted from a she to a he, Pisces. Mr. Diesel, Rudolph Diesel. He's the namesake and inventor of the diesel engine, which he created the first prototype and gained the first patent. He's also well known for the mysterious circumstances of his disappearance aboard a ship in the English Channel. You don't get much more fucking Pisces than that. You disappear on a ship And you are the father of diesel. Diesel is a fuel which is ruled by Pisces. That guy is doing his Pisces work. John Wayne Gacy. See, this is what you get with Pisces. You get George Washington and then John Wayne Gacy. Kurt Cobain, of course, he's a Pisces. I think he's a 0 Pisces. Michelangelo, who I believe has the same birthday as Einstein. Handel, who wrote what? Water music. Mr. Pisces, George Friedrich Handel, wrote water music. Camila Cabello, I don't know who she is, but I'm sure she's popular with a much younger generation. Jose de San Martin, Bugsy Siegel, underworld guy, right? Pisces. Steve Irwin. Didn't he die in the ocean? Did he get like stung by something in the ocean? It seems like a very Pisces thing to do. Let's see. Pierced in the chest by a stingray barb while filming an underwater documentary film titled The Ocean's Deadliest. Well, that's what happens. Death by Pisces. James Madison, David Livingstone, Ferdinand II of Arab, Andrew Jackson, another Pisces. Chuck Norris is a Pisces. I found that to be interesting. Justin Bieber, who just sold his catalog, is a Pisces. Neville Chamberlain, one of these English traders. Sorry, people in England, I love you, but you were way ahead of us when it came to your leadership. You trained the populace. We've all caught up to you now. Lou Costello of Abbott and Costello. Andy Gibb, who died young, right? Did he die of a drug overdose? Very Piscean. Vespucci, he's a Pisces. Ivan Lendl, the most boring tennis champion ever, Pisces. Yuri Gagarin, cosmonaut. Copernicus, we have some star watchers here. Pisces. Dr. Seuss is a Pisces. Do you know that? Let's see, Harold Wilson, another English politician. Glenn Miller, who I think died over the ocean, if I'm not mistaken. John Steinbeck is such a Pisces writer. Grapes of Wrath, that is such a Pisces book. Bobby Orr, the famous hockey player from Canada. Who else do we have? Pisces. Chris Martin from Coldplay. What's up with Linus Pauling? What is that? Has he got a noose around his neck? That is wild. Mr. Vitamin C, Wyatt Earp. So they're all these people are very different. Very different. Steph Curry, whom Andre Iguodala says reminded him more of Jesus than anybody's ever met. Pisces. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Who? How long was she dead for, really? She dead for about 2 years. I mean, that was, how long are they going to keep Fetterman alive for? That's the next question. Or if he's even alive. David Gilmour, who ironically is an atheist as a Pisces. Although I think he does worship at the altar of Polly. Seal, Pisces. Who else do we have? Shaquille O'Neal, Pisces. So Shaquille, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith, all three of those guys on the TNT basketball show, they're all Pisces. Bobby Fischer, very interesting character, basically denounced his own faith, religion, and culture, and became known as one of the world's most raging anti-Semites. But before that, he was a chess prodigy. And if you ever want to watch some very interesting videos, go on YouTube and just type in Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer has no filter, none whatsoever. Darryl Strawberry never met a line of Coke he couldn't pass up. Pisces, does that surprise you? And everybody loves Straw, even though he would fuck up. Yeah, come on back, They're almost always ready to resurrect Straw's career. Let's see who else. Nina Simone. I've heard Nina Simone was a dude. I can't I can't verify that. Mr. Rogers is he seems like a Pisces, doesn't he? The gentle guy in his sweater, the neighborhood. Who else we have? Jack Kerouac, total Pisces. Total Pisces. Queen Latifah, another Pisces. So we have a lot of different characters here. A lot of different characters. There's Kerouac, Levi Strauss, Chester Nimitz, and Nimitz is here, right here, Fredericksburg. We have the Nimitz Museum right here in Fredericksburg. A great composer, Vivaldi, a lot of great artists under the sign of Pisces. Samuel Pepys, the diarist, Flavor Flav. But now we have Sirhan Sirhan. So James Earl Ray and Sirhan Sirhan connected to the deaths of MLK and Bobby Kennedy, both Pisces. And I bet they're both Patsies too. Ric Flair is a Pisces. Rob Roy, the Scottish folk hero. Lee Marvin's a Pisces. Bobby Jones, the golfer. Jessica Biel. They're all very different. F.W. de Klerk, who tried to lead South Africa out of apartheid, but that was going to go in one direction and one direction only. Liza Minnelli, yep, with all of her sundry drug issues, definitely fits under the role of Pisces. Bryan Cranston, he came under fire recently because he was basically dumping on white people. He dumped on white people. I know who that is right there. W.E.B. Du Bois, the guy who set up the NAACP, also a Pisces. Look, he's right below Bryan Cranston. They're like cellmates right there. Albert Speer, who was the, what was he, like the marketer of the Third Reich, right? He was the minister of propaganda. Kurt Russell, Pisces. Kirby Puckett. You know, I saw Kirby Puckett one day in Seattle. He was walking, the Twins were playing a game. And it was during the day, and they had just gone to Nordstrom's. Him and Al Newman, who played second base for the Twins. And they had bought a shit ton of clothes, and I think mostly shoes. And so Kirby Puckett had his bag with all of his shoes in his right hand. And I knew it was Kirby Puckett. And I walked up to him as I'm walking by. I said, "Hey, you better change hands. That could affect your swing tonight." And he laughed. He thought it was funny. And Kirby had a rough time there at the end. Went blind in one eye, got involved in some weird shit. You know, he had a very Piscean end. In spite of it all, he's in the Hall of Fame. We got Dakota Fanning, Miss 50 Shades of Grey. Isn't that her? Is she in that movie? There's Chuck, another Pisces. Daniel Craig, worst Bond ever, Pisces. Sorry. Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Pisces. The lovely Eva Longoria, Pisces. A lot of fashion guys here too. Givenchy. Who else did I see that was a fashion guy? Who else was there? Was a fashion guy? Givenchy, Pisces. Jason Newsted, the guy that got kicked out of Nirvana. Or did he leave? Did he leave on his own? I forget which. But yeah, I got a sense that he didn't want to leave, or there's some sour grapes there. Ravel. See, we got another composer. Pisces. Pisces and music, man. They go hand in baton. Robert Mugabe. Oh boy. You see what I'm talking about here? I mean, you can get people under Pisces that are kind of saintly, and then you get Robert Mugabe, who's a fucking devil, right? I mean, just hundreds of thousands of people died under his reign in the former Rhodesia. What is it now? Zambia? James Taylor, very Piscean dude, right? Am I right about that? Erdogan, there's another Pisces. David Niven, Who else do we have here? Some baseball players, Mel Ott, Enrico Caruso, they're great. Alain Prost is an interesting character. He had a rivalry with the Brazilian guy. I always fucking there's go to Prost. I always forget the Brazilian guy's name and I have to remember it. Baby boomer Senna. Yes, Prost is known for his racing rivalries, particularly with Ayrton Senna. Oh man, he and Senna were like they hated each other. And Prost was a Pisces and Senna is a Aries. They just went at it, man. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Pisces. Pops, Willie Stargell, Pisces. Who else do we have here? Oh, Tedros. Oh, God. The guy from The Who. Pisces. Ja Rule, Pisces. William Hurt, the late William Hurt, great actor. But they're all like really different personalities. Michael Caine came out and told people to get vaccinated. Pisces. Floyd Mayweather Jr., Pisces. Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. There's your Pisces types right there. Another page. Let's do one more. Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, Pisces, Virgo. They eventually like had a thing. It didn't end well with Quincy and Michael. The feisty Holly Hunter, Pisces. Bernardo Bertolucci, great director. Pisces, Niki Lauda. I was looking at Niki Lauda's chart, another racer. You know, he got caught up in a really bad car accident, burned most of his face. Also a Pisces. Who else do we have here? George Thorogood, the Delaware Destroyer. One bourbon, one scotch, one beer. That is a Pisces anthem right there. Pete Rozelle, the commissioner of the NFL. Both the NFL has had two commissioners that have been Pisces. They've only had, in the modern era, they've only had three commissioners. And two out of the three were Pisces. Ansel Adams, total Pisces dude. Very Pisces. Mitt Romney, Pisces, of course. A slippery character. There's another slippery character. Here, there's Kelsey Grammer, Pisces. We're going to talk about him in a second. Dr. J. Julius Erving, also a Pisces. And what's funny about Irving is that he starred in a movie called The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. And what was the name of the team? The Pittsburgh Pisces. Who else? James Worthy. He was a badass in the NBA. Pisces. Spike Lee, Pisces. Who else? A lot of golfers, Pisces. Billy Corgan. Now, that guy's a trip. He's a trip. He's a Pisces. He's always a good interview. I'd like to interview Billy Corgan. Who else? We have John Hamm from Mad Men, Pisces. Who else do we have? Oliver Wendell Holmes, Richard Francis Burton. We're coming to the end of the line here. Richie Ashburn, The Golden Boy, Trevor Noah. See ya. Samuel Barber, another composer, Lightning Hopkins, Pisces. Von Meter, who was America's First Family, that whole comedy sketch scene. Jim Bouton, who wrote Ball 4 and was crucified for it. He's definitely crucified for it. Let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, Mitch McConnell. Okay. All right. So let's go back in time a little bit. And we're going to talk about when Saturn was in Pisces in the 1930s. It's a very interesting time. And it's a time where there's a run-up to World War II. And one can make a case with Saturn and Pisces with two other Saturn cycles where war is involved. And I'll show you what those wars are. So let's go. I have this one page kind of mapped out here, kind of the start of it. Let's see. So we're going to go all the way back to 1935. Now, Saturn ingresses into Pisces, and then it retrogrades into Aquarius, and then it comes back into Pisces. So again, one of the things that really struck me about the symbolism for Pisces is on January 24th, the first canned beer is sold in Richmond, Virginia by Gottfried Kruger Brewing Company. So again, you have Molotov, who's the founder of the Molotov Cocktail, right? And then you have in Saturn and Pisces, you're dealing with, like, yes, I know. And when you want a beer, you don't drink beer. You don't drink beer at all. With Saturn, it's corporatization of alcohol. It's like, it's assembly line shit. It's the first canned beer. They had bottles of beer, but it's the first canned beer. Saturn and Pisces. What's also interesting here is you can begin to see, like, the run-up for World War II. Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler orders reinstatement of the Air Force, the Luftwaffe, in violation of the 1919 Treaty of Versailles. One of these days, I'm going to get into this. Not on this show, on one of my other shows. It's when Richard Hauptmann is convicted and sentenced to death for the kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh Jr. There's a lot of evidence that shows that Hauptmann did not do it. Also, when Saturn goes into Pisces, Monopoly, Parker Brothers sells Monopoly. So Saturn goes into Pisces and sells Monopoly. What's the connection there? The bank always wins. I don't know, maybe. But you can see the run up, right, for World War II. Also, there's a big Dust Bowl phenomenon that's happening during this time with Saturn and Pisces, right there, April 14th. And it becomes a really big part of what happens in America, and migration from the Midwest to places like California. I've done a show on that before. It's a very interesting part of our history, and one where, it was really bad. Like, if you were just trying to get a little patch of land somewhere in California, Central Valley, and you were riding a train, there would be locals in California that would meet the train at the tracks, and they would meet them with guns, and they would force people off the train and tell them to go back to where they came from, right? They didn't want anybody coming in from Arkansas or Oklahoma or Kansas or Nebraska, where their farmland had been wiped out. It was like, no, we don't want the competition. So it's a kind of a little dirty secret. People are territorial, right? They're territorial. They didn't want to give up their territory to this group of people. Now, I think the Dust Bowl thing is a whole interesting dive. All right, check this out. So Sun Myung Moon, a teenage Presbyterian convert in Korea under Japanese rule, claims to have a revelation from Jesus, telling him to complete his mission from almost 2,000 years ago. Hello, Saturn and Pisces. It's the birth of the Moonies, right? The birth of the Moonies happens on April 17th, where Sun Myung Moon has a vision. Saturn and Pisces. This is also pretty interesting. The Roerich Pact, Pan-American Treaty on the Protection of Cultural Artifacts, is signed in Washington, D.C. So, they're trying to protect some of these ancient artifacts. For what reason, that remains to be seen. Maybe they're looking at them as perhaps sacred technologies that they might be able to tap into. But the reason they call it the Roerich Pact is because of this guy, Nicholas Roerich, who was a mystic and a very interesting character. And there's actually an act named after him, very kind of Piscean shit, right? He's a mystic, and they actually have a governmental act named after him to preserve these artifacts. So now you can see it here, right? Like, Hitler is starting to conscript troops. He's putting together an army. This is all Saturn and Pisces. Look at this. Alcoholics Anonymous, founded in Akron, Ohio. by William G. Wilson and Robert Smith. Saturn in Pisces. We're going to deal with alcoholism. We're going to have a group dedicated with support and structure so that people can get off their booze trip. It's all Saturn and Pisces stuff. I mean, when you really look at history through the astrological lens, it just makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So the other thing here, this is important. On August 14th, this is just before, I think it's either at the retrograde or just before the retrograde. Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act. Well, why is that important? Well, if you go to the next, let's do this. We'll go to the next level here. Let's go to 1965. Right, so we're going to move ahead 30 years. And what happens? Well, you have Johnson, and you have the war on poverty, and you have the Great Society. This all happens with Saturn and Pisces. It all happens with, and then of course you have the run-up of what war? The Vietnam War. That's all happening with Saturn and Pisces. All happening Saturn and Pisces. Let me see if I can find the Johnson stuff. That might be 64. Let me just get in here a little bit. I think it's 64. I think it's 64. Just want to make sure. Yeah, pretty sure. Let me do 64. 64 Saturn's in Pisces, and I think that's when it all goes down. Let's see. So there's a 24th Amendment that happens in 64. Let's see. Clay beats Sonny Liston. The Phantom Knockout. Jack Ruby is convicted. Jacob Rubenstein. May. Let's see, where is it? The first Moog synthesizer comes out 64. That's not what I'm looking for. Here, let me do this. Okay, we're on Lyndon Johnson's page. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. There's that. The Great Society, 1964. He wins the presidential election in 1964. The Voting Rights Act, 1965. So this is all a big deal. The War on Poverty. He has the Revenue Act of 1964, the Economic Opportunity Act. I mean, so you can see this as kind of a FDR 2.0, all Saturn and Pisces, right? Because it's where the institutions, the government, is supposed to step in and theoretically address the needs of the underserved, the underprivileged, the oppressed, and the poor. And clearly, Roosevelt starts that off with the whole Social Security thing, and then eventually he goes even further with the New Deal and John. So it's both regiments, right? Both regimes are engaged in social change with Saturn in Pisces. It's all there, right? When Saturn goes into Pisces, I think it's 1990, like late 1994. We've got 3 years of that in Clinton. And I don't know if there is an equivalent with Clinton, but I can tell you that we saw the run up to World War II with Saturn in Pisces. We saw the run up with the Vietnam War, because it's really just kind of a quote unquote armed conflict until Johnson really gets his hands in the war and it becomes a full scale fucking war, right? So we see that under Johnson. You know, by the time Nixon takes office, like he's inherited a major conflict in the South Pacific. And then when Clinton is in office in that stretch in the 90s, of course, he's going into Kosovo and the Balkans, right? And so again, there's this ramping up of the war. And even his sanctions against Iran and the no-fly zones over, those are all acts of war. And so even Clinton with Saturn and Pisces, there's this undercurrent, this undertow of war and conflict that is brewing. And eventually, with Clinton, that undertow and that conflict will eventually kind of rise up again after post 9/11, right? It's like, okay, well, we're going to put these things together and we're going to advance this cause, even though these two things aren't really connected, but they'll wind up doing that eventually, right? So we can see these patterns with Saturn and Pisces. And also the whole drug thing plays a pretty significant role. Drugs, alcohol, if you go back to the early 60s, you know, like 64, 65, 1964, cocaine is still legal. Not cocaine, I'm sorry, LSD is still legal. But by the time they hit, I think it was at 1966, it's considered a class 1 substance. But then you have all the drugs that are starting to filter into society. A heavy duty amount of cannabis is starting to come in. I think by the time 65 and 66 are rolling around, you're starting to get heroin from the South Pacific, as the United States literally takes over the heroin trade from the French, who were there prior to the United States. So there's a huge rise in drugs in the country in that first run of Saturn and, well, not the first one. The first one, at least in the 20th century, is during the 30s, right? But during this time, drugs are really starting to come into play. I mean, it becomes the backdrop of the 60s. It's all very Piscean. So the other piece here that we're looking at in terms of that 94, 97 cycle, even though crack cocaine had been around, by the time Saturn's fully in Pisces, it is, you know, it's on the map, right? Like crack houses, and it's a big deal. It's a very, very big, it's starting to hit middle class neighborhoods by the time it gets into 94 to 97. So we see two concurrent themes, right? We see the rise of war with Saturn and Pisces. World War II, Vietnam War, and the war in the Balkans, and Kosovo, and that whole region, right? Post end of the Soviet Union. And then we see some interesting things around drugs taking place. So those are just like two separate things that are part of 3 historical cycles. So if we could take the past and extrapolate the past and bring it into the present, what would it look like? Well, we've got a war already brewing in Ukraine and Russia, the European theater. We have another war that's brewing, again, theoretically, in Taiwan. So there's plenty of these currents that are circulating, and the one I would definitely keep my eye on is the Ukrainian conflict. And you know, that has the potential of, again, and I don't know to the extent what everything is going on there, because it seems like there are things that are happening, there are things that are not happening, which is very Piscean too, by the way. But just know that we have this thing going on in the background, just like they had these other conflicts going on in the background. And if we look at, and I'm going to have to go back and look at some of the legislation that Clinton passed between 94 and 97. But if we look at some of those social acts or those social, what's what I'm looking for, mandates that were passed by Roosevelt and Johnson, I think that the next thing that we could be looking at along those lines would be something like reparations. So I would not be surprised at all if reparations is part of the ongoing discussion as Saturn moves into Pisces. It's already in the air. I can just see it getting much bigger than that, right? Much, much bigger than the conversation we're having, because we can see it historically. These things have already happened. So I don't want to give away too much here, because I'm doing a little town hall for members next Saturday. We're really going to get into Saturn and Pisces. So we're going to have a nice deep dive. We're going to go into the oceanic depths of Saturn and Pisces. And if you're a member, you should have gotten a newsletter with the invite. If you want to join and become a member, you can do that on my website, robertphoenix.com. And I have 3 levels of membership you can sign up for. And that is the Mercury, which is $5 a month. We have Mars, which is 10, and Jove, which is 20. And they all have their benefits. So if you are a Mercury member, so you'll get a separate email that the members get. And you get to go to the town hall meetings just like the other levels do. If you're a Mars member, you get 5% off of my services. And if you're a Jove member, you get 10% off my services, which is a nice little savings. And as I crank up some webinars here in the not so distant future, Mars and Jove have some access to those that the Mercury level doesn't. But your support does help me out here. It helps me pay for certain things like Boxcast. I have to pay for Boxcast every month, which isn't a ton of money, but it's also not cheap. And then bandwidth and costs associated with doing my shows on a frequent basis. And as I've mentioned before, I don't have a paywall, right? So everything I share, with the exception of the town hall stuff and a few of the webinars, everybody gets it. Right, everybody gets the content, so there's no paywall here, and I only have one sponsor, and until further notice, that's the way it's going to be. So if you want to join, and if I get you joining before Saturday, I'll invite you. So there you go. It's really interesting. We had the Crimmies on Friday, and we were talking about a lot of this Piscean stuff. And there's this new movie coming out called The Jesus Revolution. And it's such a trip because I did number one, I did a show on Gaia. And number two, I did a pretty extensive blog post. And it was the extensive blog post that I actually expanded into one of my shows on Gaia. And it has to do with this period of 1970, 71, when Neptune moves into Sagittarius. And there is a decidedly religious spiritual vibe in the air. And I was living in Southern California in 1969, and you can feel it. There was something very interesting in the air during that time, and it wasn't smog. I remember going to a restaurant in Laguna Beach, and it felt like I had stepped into, I was only like 9 years old, but it felt like I stepped into some kind of Art Nouveau, quasi-religious kind of temple. It was really, it wasn't like stultifying or anything like that, but it was definitely different. It was like I'd stepped into a very different kind of environment, and it was all very intentional. I could tell on their part. So something was in the air, right? Even when you go into the dark side of sort of that shift, that phase shift from 69 to 70, and you pick up the flotsam and the jetsam of the Manson family, or some of the other strange groups that were around them. But there was a lot in the air. There was a lot of kind of religious zeal in the air, And so there's this new movie that's out called The Jesus Revolution. And I think I'll play, if you haven't seen it, I'll play the clip for it again, because this is all, again, really heavy Saturn and Pisces material. Heavy Saturn and Pisces material. So we can find it. Oh, okay. I'll get you. Thanks, Chelsea. You're on. Thank you for that. I just saw that real time. Got it. All right. I'm going to leave that open. Thanks for sending that to me. All right. Yeah. So I don't know why, because I get a list of people that that my provider sends me to sign up for the newsletter. So I don't know why you didn't make it. All right. I'll make sure you get that. Sometimes too with the newsletter, check your spam, because sometimes they get sent into the spam zone. Okay, just saying. All right. So let me play you this trailer for Jesus Freak. No, it's the Jesus Freak. Oh, before I do that, I wanted to play you something here, which I think is like there. It's right there. Oh, that's interesting. It's on the same page. Ooh, how about that? Okay, I'm going to play this. This is Marianne Williamson. And Marianne Williamson has just announced she's running for president, which is interesting, because she's going to primary Biden. She's going to run as a Democrat. So she's running. So that means that Biden, actually, if he's still around, and I have my doubts, honestly, based on the astrology, I'm really surprised Kamala is not president by now. I gave it to the end of March. So if Biden is still around, he's going to have to run against Marianne Williamson. And I think Marianne Williamson is a threat. I do, and I'll tell you why. Number one, she comes from a religious, spiritual background. That's where she comes from. I'm not a huge fan, honestly. You know, I think I'm just not a huge fan. But I am looking forward to watching her run against Biden, and with Saturn in Pisces and her standing out in a way that she really couldn't stand out in the last election. And by the way, I was actually surprised she got that much time during that she even got on board with the Democratic debates. I was very surprised. And I think Marianne Williamson is a real wild card here, because she is going to run with this Saturn and Pisces energy. And that is the world that she comes from. You know, she was known for having her own church in Southern California. And a lot of people were really, really into Marianne Williamson back in the day. I'm going to play her campaign announcement, and that's going to give you an idea as to what she's going to be running on. So check this out. Here she is, Marianne Williamson. Let me see if I can, hold on, I gotta make sure I have the right hookup here. Yeah, I didn't have the right hookup. You gotta have the right hookup. All right, here we go.
As of today, am a candidate for the office of President of the United States. that this country is plagued by many challenges now, not the least of which is hatred and division, which is greater than any of us have experienced in our national life. And it is our job to create a vision of justice and love that is so powerful that it will override the forces of hatred and injustice and fear. And I say to you now, again, hear me, it's our turn. Let's do this. Thank you very, very, very.
So I'm going to tell you right now that that woman's message is going to resonate with people. She's going to resonate with people, especially if she has to go mano a mano with President Clone. And with Saturn in Pisces, that's a message that people are going to want to hear. People are tired. They're very, very tired. And if somebody gives them a sense of hope or relief or redemption, they'll be all over it. They will be all over it. So keep your eye on Marianne Williamson. I think she's a player in this election. And it has to do with Saturn and Pisces. She's going to represent something that was not in the air the last time that she ran. You know, and she's going to be symbolic of peace, hope, and redemption. And she's not dumb. Marianne Williamson is not dumb. She's really smart. I wouldn't want her as my president or president of the country, but don't underestimate this woman, especially under this influence. Because I think she could be, and if she's got friends in the media or they smell a story, they'll get behind her. And the next thing you know, it'll take off like wildfire. And she's there for the spiritual folk, right? You know, she'll catch fire from the religious people. And if she gets that far, it'll be interesting to see how she deals with that debate. But the spiritual people will love her. They'll be all over her. The religious people, maybe not as much. Okay, I want to get into this other clip. This is from this movie, this upcoming movie called The Jesus Revolution. And I'm going to play it. It stars Kelsey Grammer, who happens to be a Pisces. All right, here we go. So I played this on Friday. I'm going to play it again. And again, we're looking at this coming in with Saturn and Pisces. This is timely and there's no mistake. So here we go.
Hey, Square.
I am not a square.
Think we should invite Greg this weekend.
What's this weekend?
These people are hippies, rebels against old-fashioned authority.
I think these kids need help.
What they need is a bath.
You're passing judgment on people you know nothing about. Maybe that's why your church is so empty.
When God walks in here, brings me a hippie, I'll ask him what it's all about, because I do not understand.
This house has a very good vibe. There is an entire generation searching.
Slow down, man, slow down.
Just in all the wrong places. If you want to reach my people, you need to speak to them in a language they understand.
If I bring them in, I'm going to lose my job.
We can only walk through doors open to us. In your church, that's a door that's shut.
You've probably noticed we have some guests here today. I'd like you to meet my new friends. Welcome.
They don't belong here. Half of them aren't even wearing shoes. They're staining the new shag carpet.
They need our help. If you feel like you're misunderstood and judged, you will find forgiveness and freedom right here.
That was awesome.
Now that door is open any time of day. And if there are some who don't like that, well then that door works both ways.
All right, Pastor, let's begin.
I was almost done with this, but then you did what nobody else would even dare.
This thing that we found, I feel like I belong.
You're gonna need a bigger church.
Okay, so the cynic in me says this movie isn't just about the 60s and Southern California and the rising of the new dawn. No, it's about 2025 and paving the way for this kind of wider road of interdenominational experience, right? Kind of like what I experienced at the church last weekend when they brought up the gender fluid support group and the social justice warrior support group. To me, this movie is a metaphor for that, right? So they're kind of paving the way for this this very broad acceptance of faith. Who knows? Maybe that's what it'll take. I don't know, right? But from what I would call a programming standpoint, that's what I think this movie's about. It's a metaphor from another time. But on the other hand, it also signifies something else that I do think that's happening that's deeper. And Saturn and Pisces in this incarnation, in this spin, is going to be more religious, more spiritual, more profound, more deep, more in some ways even scary, right? Like the odds, like there's, you're all in. I mean, this period of time, this 3-year cycle is going to be very, very interesting as far as how it really torques people's faith. And so I've written about this period. And when I wrote my piece, I actually used this image. This is a cover from Time magazine. I believe it's 1972, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought when I was writing my piece and looking back at that time of Neptune exaltation in Sagittarius, it was the Jesus movement. And it wasn't stale. It wasn't your parents' Jesus. Right? This was Jesus as a rock star. This was Jesus Christ superstar period. This was in the air. And whether it was kind of a backwash of the 1960s and the summer of love, which really in a lot of ways felt like that's what it was supposed to be. I mean, maybe it showed up a little bit late, but eventually it morphs into things like Est and human potential. This is kind of where this whole thing goes. But for a brief period of time there, 1970 to about 1973, 74, this energy is kind of off the charts. And what's interesting is I talk about another song. They used Listen to the Music by the Doobie Brothers, but the Doobie Brothers also wrote the song saying, Jesus is just all right with me. And it was like, that to me was a sign and signifier of the time. It was just in the air. So even though Saturn was not in Pisces at that time, Neptune was in Sag. Now we have Saturn in Pisces, and we have all these Pluto and Sag kids who are really the offspring of the Neptune and Sag parents. That's how it works. So this is going to be a very interesting time. And I'm going to talk more about that on Saturday at the town hall. So we get into this pretty deeply. It'll be fun. And then you guys get to talk and hang out. And I don't know why I want to call it a town. It's just the only thing I come up with. But you guys get to talk and, we'll hang out. It'll be fun. We'll do it for about 2 hours. Starts 12 noon. Next week, I'll have some slides and we'll get into some stuff and try to see where this Saturn and Pisces thing is going. Okay? All right. And Kelsey Grammer's a Pisces. I was just looking at his chart the other day too. All right, I'm out of here. So what do we, 8:30? So what is that, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours? That's pretty good run. I think 3 hours stretches it out a bit much. That's my sense. 2.5 hours is good. All right, I'll be back on Tuesday with the astro weather here on this channel. So if you want to get a reading, you can do that at my website, robertphoenix.com. It's on the readings headline, but it says services. And I have an astrology course, which is quite good. It's 16 hours. If you're into it, you just pay for it in Gumroad, and then you download it, and it's yours. It's got lectures, it's got labs, and that's about it. All right. In the spirit of the show, have a really blessed week. And I'll see you guys Tuesday for the astro weather. Take care. Bye for now. Oh, before I go, mods, thank you. Thank you for all you do. Oh, you know what else I want to do? I want to play. You know what? I'm kind of behind here. I gotta play Dr. Joni, a birthday song, because you know what? If I didn't do that, I wouldn't hear the last of it. All right, here we go. I got to find the right song. Let's see what we got here. Oh, here we go. This is perfect right here. Here we go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear dentist. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Wishing you a very happy birthday. May all your dreams come true. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear dentist. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Wishing you a very happy birthday. May all your dreams come true. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear dentist. Happy birthday, happy birthday.
You know what I love about that? I love the other. Oh, dude, Jesus! How about one more?
It's your birthday. It's the day that you were born. It's the day your mama brought you home. It's a special day. Let us celebrate. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. I'm gonna celebrate with you. Time to celebrate. Tell everybody. Come on, y'all. Come on and celebrate on your birthday. Come on, y'all. Hey. And many more.
All right, you got a double dose there on that one. It's good. But I love the cupcakes from the happy birthday dentist. There's plenty of sweets in there for the happy birthday dentist. All right, Moz, thank you.